Chapter 17. Author's note. This is a rough draft. I wrote this quickly as I can, and if this is bad I will try to edit it. Matt Pav. I built an underground basement like back home, just much bigger. Also was really upgrading a few of the things in the Cullens house like their security system, garage, etc. When I was working I felt someone hug me from behind. As I smiled asked, "Hello Rosalie, what can do for you?" Rosalie, who didn't release me, whispered, "Nothing, just thinking about having some time to ourselves." I grinned and asked, "So what do you have in mind?" Rosalie smiled and replied, "How about we go out for a drive?" I smiled, and as I was about reply Sarah interrupted, "We have a problem. Alice just saw a vision, and from her expression, it is really bad." I then went to the meeting room as all of them had already assembled, and Alice explained a vision of Victoria in Forks looking for Bella. I nodded as I heard Edward say, "If she is coming for her, we must take her away from here." Carlyle was thoughtful and asked, "Matt, what do you suggest?" I sighed and replied, "You can keep her safe by taking her away from Forks, but what excuse are you going to make to get Bella out? Since I just read Edward's thoughts, he wants to take her to Renee in Phoenix." Edward nodded and said, "Bella would be safe in Phoenix, and she would get to spend time with her mother." I shook my head and said, "That will not work since Bella and I have an estranged relationship with our mother, so she would just hate it there, and I don't think keeping this from her will do any of us any good, especially since you don't want to tell her about Victoria." Edward just nodded in understanding, while Carlyle, who was thoughtful, said, "Matt, why don't explain the situation to Bella, and I am sure the only place she can go to is Phoenix without being questioned by Charlie." I frowned at that and thought, that is also true since Charlie is already keeping a close eye on Bella, so going to Phoenix to visit Renee is the only option. I explained everything to Bella, who knew it was for her own protection even though she hated the fact she had to visit Renee. Soon she went with Edward to a Phoenix, while the very next day Victoria showed, which led to her being chased by both Cullens and the pack, but a fight broke out between Emmett and Jacob, which gave Victoria a chance to escape. Both Rosalie and I were guarding my dad, as that red-haired bitch may send vampires after him. I could only sigh. Jacob really needs to find his imprint soon. I went to Billy to talk about this. As I reached him, Billy angrily said, "I know why you are here, Matt. My son screwed up once again." I nodded and replied, "He needs to let go of this stupid grudge against the Cullens." Billy sighed, "I tried, but everything I say going from one ear and out of the other. Only time he listens is when it is something about Bella." I groaned, "Sorry to say this, Billy, your son is a pain in the ass to deal with. I already have Edward Cullen, and that is enough." The last part was a whisper. Billy was embarrassed as he spoke. If he did not start a fight with Emmett Kidd, that red-haired vampire would have been caught. I mentally thought, he is not wrong there, since in one of the Roots visions Victoria was indeed killed if that fight didn't happen. I called Bella and told her it was safe to come to Forks. She pretty much packed her stuff and came home the very next day. She seemed really annoyed. Renee. I didn't ask what Renee did to make her this irritated. I went back to the Cullens where everyone was waiting for me. Rosalie was the first one to ask, "So how did your talk with Billy go?" I nodded and replied, "Everyone is really angry with Jacob, and no one seems to blame Emmett since it was an accident and Jacob should have concentrated on catching Victoria." Sarah muttered, "That's good." While Carlyle asked, "So what about Jacob? What are they going to do with him?" I was thoughtful and replied, "There have been talks about kicking out of the pack, which is considered something very disgraceful for a shapeshifter." Jasper, who was in full major mode, replied, "He should be. If not for him, we would have caught Victoria." Esme asked with concern, "Does Jacob understand what this means?" I sighed and replied, "He is just holding a grudge since Bella chose Edward rather than him, and especially for a shapeshifter, that much anger can sometimes lead to them going out of control." Alice asked, "Bella is coming to school tomorrow, right?" I smiled, replied, "Yes, she is, and Edward is guarding. Stalking, her." Everyone slightly laughed at that. The mood lightened a bit. Everyone went back to their room as Rosalie cuddled with me as she asked, "Have you thought about what you said to me during our date about having a baby?" I looked at her and asked, "Do you really want one now?" Rosalie shook her head and replied, "Not now, after getting rid of Victoria." I nodded as we both enjoyed each other's company. The next day I rode with Jasper and others in their Jeep as I saw Jacob and Embry waiting in front of the school. I jumped out of the Jeep and went towards them and gave Embry a hug and asked, "What are you doing here?" Embry smiled and replied, "Just making sure this troublemaker says his sorry to Emmett." Jacob glared at both Embry and me. We just ignored him as Edward was coming with Bella as she was uncomfortable with Jake and awkwardly greeted, "Hey." Jacob, who was in full emo mode, asked, Charlie said you left town. Bella replied, what I went to visit Renee, what is it you, Jacob? Edward, who read Jacob's mind, laughed and said, he is here to make sure you are human. Embry, who grabbed Jacob's shoulder, whispered, don't get into more trouble than what you are already in. Jacob hesitantly nodded and said, looking elsewhere, I came here to say sorry about what happened during our last patrol. I smirked and said, you have to tell that apology to Emmett, not to us also at least act like you are sincere. Jacob was miffed at that as I called Emmett, who heard everything came grinning towards us as Jacob apologized, gritting his teeth. Embry smiled and said, goodbye, guys. I looked at everyone and said, guys, I am going to take Bella to Sam's house since I am sure she will remain restless until she knows about what happened between the pack and us. I narrowed my eyes at Bella, who looked down in embarrassment since she was about to do just that. I kissed Rosalie on the cheek and took Bella to Sam's house as we were going. Bella questioned, so what happened that made Jacob apologize to Emmett? I explained, well, Bells, like you guessed, Victoria showed we worked with the pack to catch her, but the problem was the pack was going to cut Victoria off, and well Jacob disobeyed the order and went after her which led him and Emmett kinda accidentally crashing into each other. Then Jacob in anger started to fight with Emmett which led to Victoria getting away. Bella, who was stunned, asked, you are telling me they almost had Victoria, but because of that little scuffle, she escaped. I nodded and replied, Victoria is very slippery to catch Bella. We soon reached Sam's house as everyone from the pack came out as Paul said, look who's back. And Quill, who also made it to the pack, greeted, what's up Bella? Bella was surprised and asked, Quill you too? Quill smiled and replied, yup, finally made the pack. Embry and Jacob who arrived as Leah, smiled and hugged Bella and asked, how was your trip? Bella groaned, it was really exhausting. Both became friends when the Cullens were not here. Emily smiled and came running towards Bella and said, hi Bella, I was wondering when I would see you, we only see Matt here. I replied mock hurt, what Emily, you say that as if you don't like seeing me here. Sam came and hugged me, it is good to see you here. Matt, did Jacob cause any trouble? I shook my head replied, no he did not, but his apology could be more sincere. Sam who heard this, gave Jacob a look, which caused Jacob to huff and go away. Sam replied, he has been getting too out of control lately. It is only because of the fact he is Chief's son and because of the respect I have for Billy that he is still in the pack. Paul, who is blunt as ever said, you have to hear his thoughts as Bella this and Bella that. Bella who was embarrassed muttered, sorry about that, guys. Leah slowly put a hand on Bella's shoulder, it was not your fault. He just can't take the hint. Also even if you became his girlfriend, he should know the fact shapeshifter have imprints. Emily nodded that as we went inside as. We soon started chatting, and the topic of imprinting came up. Bella, who was curious, questioned, what is that I heard Leah mentioning it? Sam who was thoughtful, replied, how should I put it? Imprinting is basically something every shapeshifter does. It helps the shapeshifter find someone who is very compatible with them and some consider it be soulmates. I saw all the pack nod while Sam continued, there is also a philosophical part like it's not like love at first sight, really. It's more like, gravity moves, suddenly. It's not the earth holding you here anymore, she does, you become whatever she needs you to be, whether that's a protector, or a lover, or a friend. I like that actually I also know that Jacob tried to imprint on Bella forcefully. The poor guy doesn't get the fact Bella is not his imprint. Bella who was in awe with said, that is actually beautiful so everyone here has imprinted. Leah with a sad smile, replied, not me I am still looking for mine. Bella, who saw this simply hugged Leah, who was thankful for the support. I mentally thought, well you don't have to wait any longer. You will meet your imprint next week. I went outside and took my phone out messaged, where are you idiots, you guys are supposed to reach here by tomorrow. 26 comments 0 vote. Chapter 18. Author's note. This is just a rough draft. Matt Pav. The next day I was working with Rosalie on a Nissan GTR Skyline. She liked the designs from the movie Fast and Furious on my which she saw on the computer. The funny thing is there is no movie called Fast and Furious here. I soon had a call from my friends who have reached and are waiting for me at my father's house. I quickly told Rosalie, hey Rosalie, I have a couple of my friends from Phoenix who are coming here, do you want to meet them? Rosalie with slight excitement replied, of course I want to meet them. We both took my car and drove straight to Bella's house since I did move out of there. As I reached the place I saw Jackson Evans who was standing at 6 feet tall. He has a well-built form and possesses dark brown hair and eyes to match. and next to him was Tyler. Has tanned skin, short black hair, and dark brown eyes. His height is between 5 feet 9. He is our hot-headed friend. Sometimes I really wondered if he is a shifter. And last but not least Victor, who is the silent one. He has with olive skin, dark brown eyes, curly dark brown hair. I parked my car. As I got out I heard Tyler shout, "There you are! It has been at least 2 years since we last saw each other." I grinned and hugged and whispered, "Missed you to the man. How have you been?" Tyler groaned and replied, "It has been boring after you left these even with these two around." I smirked that as I turned to Victor, who smiled and said, "It is really good to see you, Matt." I shook his hand as I enveloped in a hug by Jackson, who muttered, "Nice to see you again, man. We really missed you back in Phoenix. It just didn't feel right without you there, and I have heard from Bella you have a girlfriend now." Tyler, who heard this, saw Rosalie as spoke, "So that is our sister-in-law." Rosalie, who heard this, was very happy as she replied, "Hello, my name is Rosalie Cullens, Matt's girlfriend." Everyone just nodded as Tyler elbowed me and whispered, "Why didn't you say you had a girlfriend?" I replied, "It must have slipped my mind." Everyone soon got acquainted with Rosalie as I found out they were living in a hotel in Seattle. As I heard Tyler say, "You know, we just might stay. I don't know, something is just telling me to stay here." Jackson laughed and said, "That sounds so cringy, but he does have a point." Victor was grinning and said, "It feels good that the group is back together." I continued chatting with my friends as I saw Rosalie smiling at me as soon went inside to meet Bella. The day was normal, nothing really happened. Soon my friends went back to the hotel. I went back to the Cullens. That night I was joking around with Jasper and Emmett as I suddenly stopped, noticing my change. Rosalie was concerned and asked, "Matt, what happened?" I whispered, "Someone just tried to enter Bella's room." Hearing this, everyone was focused on me as Edwards went to get Bella. As I muttered, "It was a really good idea for me to have set up those defenses." Rosalie came, sat on my lap, replied, "Yes, it was." Soon Edward returned with Bella. As I explained, the guy tried to enter Bella's room but ran away soon as he got tasered, but I was able to get a picture. I showed all of them the hologram of Riley Beers. Jasper, who crossed his arms over his chest, said, "This is not someone we know, and by the looks of it is a newborn since, unlike Edward, who was unable to move for a small time from the taser, this guy was able to recover quickly." I nodded and said, "I had Arthur do a facial recognition. His name is Riley Bears, a local who went missing." I replied, "Yes, by the looks of it he came specifically for Bella." Everyone now turned super serious hearing that. Carlisle was concerned and replied, "Someone is orchestrating this." Sarah with concern questioned, "Could it be Victoria?" Alice shook her head and replied, "No, I would have seen her decide." Edward with certainty told everyone, "It has to be the Volturi." Alice quickly claimed, "No, I don't think it is the Volturi either. I have been watching their decisions too." I tuned out and most as I heard Bella say, "So if you guys protect me and my dad all the time, will this not cause a problem with your thirst?" Carlisle gave Bella a smile and said, "That won't be a problem. Matt here developed pills for us to sustain our thirst." Bella gave me a look that said, "When were you going to tell me this?" I shrugged and said, "Don't give me that look. I thought Edward here would have told you about that, so I didn't tell you about it." Bella now glared at Edward as I smirked. That was a good deflection. I pitched in my idea, "You guys want the wolves to help you with the protection." Carlisle nodded and said, "Please tell Sam about it. If the wolves help, then we can make sure Bella and Charlie are well protected." The next day Sam with Embry and Jacob came to look at the scent left behind by the vampire, also help with Bella and Charlie's protection. I was with Rosalie and Edward as Bella was coming with 3 of them as I smiled at Sam, who gave a nod seeing me. But Jacob just had to open his mouth. Whoever it was left a stink behind. Sam cut in with a growl, "Jacob, stop right there." Jacob quickly shut up, and as Sam looked at me and said, "Don't worry, since we got the scent, so it will be hard to miss when we cross it next time." I then went with Sam, who was curious on why I brought him away from the other as I explained, "You remember I told you about my ability to copy other vampires' gift, right?" Sam nodded while crossing his arms over his chest as I continued, "I had copied an ability called relationship identification the last time I went to the Volturi, which I kinda used it on Leah to find her imprint." Hearing this, Sam got impatient and asked, "You know who her imprint is, and do you know where he lives?" I scratched my head and said, "Yes, I know who he is and where he is now." Sam grabbed my shoulders and started asking me and asked, "Who is he and where is he?" I replied, "It is my friend Tyler from Phoenix, and he is now in Forks. I kinda called him here." Suddenly Sam had a call from Emily. Sam quickly answered as I could hear Emily's voice from the other side. "Sam, you won't believe Leah imprinted. We were just now shopping in Seattle when Leah just ran into a guy named Tyler." Sam looked at me stunned as I muttered, well, talk about timing and cliché running into a guy. The last part was in my mind. Sam quickly went to find Emily and Leah to tell them about Tyler being my friend. I tracked Tyler, who seems to have returned to the hotel as I talked to Tyler and subtly questioned him about how his day was, common stuff, until I found out he bluntly asked Leah to date. My only thought, that was fast. The Wolves and Cullens started to take shifts protecting Bella while I knew for the week nothing if going to happen, so I decided this the best time to rescue Didim, as I knew she is being held in Italy, Amalfi Coast. It is mostly to the secluded mountain region, as I told Rosalie. Rose, I will be back in a week, give or take. Rosalie narrowed her eyes at me and questioned, what are you up to? I gave an angelic smile and said, don't worry, I am just going to visit someone, and please ready the guest room, okay? Rosalie nodded and asked, who is this guest you are bringing here? I smirked and said, is this jealousy? Rose slapped me in the arm while I acted mock hurt as she said, no you idiot, I was just curious. I wrote this fanfic for fun but never knew it would have so much readers. Row 594 creators, thoughts. 37 comments, 0 vote. Chapter 19. Author's note. I am updating this rough draft, no idea if this good enough for you guys. Matt Pov. I was making my way to the mansion prison that kept Didim. The security here is really good with 400 vampires guarding it, all of them with some kind of offensive or defensive skill added to that. The security cameras installed are all top quality. I already let my probes scout the whole place. I placed my earphones or started to play my favorite songs while slowly humming the tunes. I made my way towards the mansion. I muttered, Arthur, hack into the security cameras, makes sure to leave no trace of me ever being here. Arthur instantly replied, I am already on it, sir. The vampire guard, seeing me, yelled, hey, you are not allowed to come any further, please go back. The guard next to him pitched in, why don't we just kill and feed on him? I smirked, hearing that is used advanced pain inducement to both of them as they started to turn to dust, leaving nothing behind. I jumped over the gate as I used telepathy to make everyone in the mansion ignore me. The interesting part one was just dancing and humming to the music Smooth Criminal while using pain inducement on anyone I passed by. As all of them started to turn to dust, I smiled and thought, I didn't feel anything for these people. After all, I doubt Marcus would have let them live after finding out they keeping his mate imprisoned. Most of them here are doing this to gain Arrow's favor. I reached Didim room. It was locked with 40-digit number. Lock call. About being paranoid, the room was built in such a way that if someone forced their way through the door, the person inside the room will be incinerated. Also, there was a small slot which was meant to pass food, blood and other stuff. Also, there are 2 women inside who keeps an eye on Didim, and when I sighed and thought, poor Didim, to be betrayed by her brother and to be kept away from her mate, it was plain torture for both Marcus and Didim. I entered the 40-digit number code. Soon the whole door was opening. Inside I saw there were 2 women. 2 of them attacked as I used telepathy to freeze them in place as they quickly started to disintegrate because of the use of advanced pain inducement. Didim, who saw all this with a stoic face, said, if you have come to kill me, please do it quickly. I held up my hands in surrender while saying, it is actually the opposite. I am here to save you on behalf of your mate Marcus, as he is being forced to stay in Castle Volturi. Hearing this, Didim asked with slight hope, do you really mean it? Are you really here on behalf of Marcus? I contacted Marcus through the metal link. Marcus, I have found Didim. Marcus instantly replied, my beloved Didim has been found. I explained, yes, but I need you to convince her that I am really sent by you, so I am about creating a mental link between you two. Just from I can easily tell Marcus is eager to speak to her or even just hear her voice. Didim soon broke into tears hearing Marcus. It was hell for her to be betrayed by her own brother and had to live away from her own mate. I could only shake my head and think, who said blood is thicker than water? Well, one thing is sure, Marcus wanted to come to meet her, but I had to remind him it was not the best time, and I will take Didim to Cullens for now. Didim had changed a lot during the past centuries, being away from Marcus and being betrayed by her brother and kept in the as a prisoner, not being able to be with her mate, and no matter how much she planned she couldn't escape, as her brother would notice she had given up and thought she would be locked in this place for the rest of her life or be killed by her brother if he thinks she was not of any use. Well, soon I took Didim back to the Cullens while I questioned her. I have strengthened the mental link between you and Marcus. This will make sure you guys can contact each other always. Didim smiled at me and replied, thank you for helping me. But won't my brother find out about my escape soon? Hearing smirked and said, no he won't, I already made sure of it. I already have altered Arrow's memory such that he believes Didim is dead, so he won't come to this place anymore. I was now thinking about my friends, each of them had their mates. At first I was thinking about being a matchmaker, but since Leah and Tyler are having a nice time with each other, so I didn't interfere with that. I decided to let Leah deal with how she wanted to tell Tyler about her shapeshifter problem. Also, Kate and Irina will arrive soon. It will be interesting to see how my friends will react to them. Chances of them accepting to be a vampire are close to 80% since I know both of them pretty well. Thanks for reading this fanfic even though the grammar pretty much sucks. Row 594 Creators, Thoughts. 29 comments 0 vote. Chapter 20. Author's note. This is a quickly written chapter, hope you guys will enjoy this. Matt Pav. I soon returned with Didim back to the Cullens and Rosalie was the first one to greet me with a passionate kiss. Also I soon told them about how Didim was imprisoned. Even Carlisle and Esme, who were kind, really hated Arrow. Both of them happily welcomed Didim to their home. Carlisle with a sad smile said, I never thought Arrow would go this far just so he could have Marcus by his side. Jasper, who heard this, said, it is Marcus's ability, not Marcus himself. For Jasper, it reminded of him of how Maria used him. Alice, who seemed to know what Jasper was thinking, grabbed his hand to comfort him. Didim couldn't refute what Jasper said as she replied, I guess my brother died the day he turned into a vampire. Esme consoled Didim, who began to cry. I could only sigh, think, she must have bottled up all her emotions. I was soon dragged by Rosalie towards our bedroom as I questioned her with a teasing smile, what, can't wait until nightfall? Rosalie, who blushed hearing his, punched me on the shoulder and said, no you idiot, you Kate and Irina will be here tomorrow. I gave a nod hearing that as I went to visit Sam, who was wrestling with Jared, who was his second in command. As the pack saw me, Sam smiled, asked, what can I do for you, Matt? I simply replied, well, to vegetarian vampires are soon coming to meet the Cullens soon. I just wanted to inform the pack about them. Sam nodded at that as he was thankful for the heads up as he replied, well, I will tell Billy about this. I knew my job was done as I looked around and saw that Jacob was not here, so I questioned, so Sam, I don't see Jacob anywhere. Sam sighed and replied, yes, well, Billy tried to get Jacob to understand that Bella is Edward's mate, but it seems the message is not getting through his thick skull. I grimaced and replied, if this goes on, I don't want to find out how he will react to Edward and Bella's decision to get married. Kate and Irina soon arrived at Forks. It was nice to see them again, and Rosalie wanted to give them a tour around Forks. Even if the town is not much, it still is new to them. As Kate, who was now looking at me curiously, asked, so why did you ask us to come here? That to acting all mysterious. I smiled and replied, you will find out soon. It was interesting as I slowly changed Kate and Irina's skin appearance to normal humans, but even then vampires seemed to be really beautiful or handsome as they quickly attract the attention of a lot of people. We soon took them to show around Forks, and I knew in my visions or roots that Victor and Jackson wanted to go party, so they wanted to ask if I was coming, and they are now waiting at my house. I smirked and thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. We reached my home as I saw both Victor and Jackson waiting for me. I parked my car and quickly went towards them. Both of them smiled and gave a hug while I asked while looking around, where is Tyler? Jackson smirked and replied, oh, our bad boy has gone on date. I said while I knew Jackson was internally yelling, that bastard abandoned us without even saying a word. When I see that bloody idiot again, I will beat the pulp out of him. I was also smiled hearing both that Tyler and Leah must be having a good time. Okay, that is good. While I saw Victor stunned seeing Kate, and while Victor's jaw dropped seeing Irina, could only think, it was an interesting reaction. Is this how I reacted seeing Rosalie? Kate and Irina were looking at boys with great interest. Asked muttered, so this was the surprise and I like it. Irina, whose eyes were focused on Jackson, nodded in acknowledgement while Kate elbowed Rosalie and whispered, did you know Matt was going to do this? Rosalie with a weak smile replied, no, I really don't know what goes through his head half the time. Both the sisters saw Rosalie didn't know about this as Irina looked at Kate and whispered, they are our mates. Kate just gave a nod of acknowledgement. Jackson walked towards Irina, acted suave, said while giving his hand, my name is Evans, Jackson Evans. I facepalmed and muttered, idiot, but to my surprise, Irina just giggled hearing his intro, replied, niece trying to copy James Bond. Hearing that, Jackson blushed in embarrassment and muttered, well, that was embarrassing. Irina, who heard this, replied, no, I thought it was cute. Hearing this, I was sure Jackson turned into a tomato or something to get away from the subject. Jackson immediately asked, so are you related to the Cullens? Irina smiled and replied, yes, cousins actually. Jackson gave a slight nod while he continued talking with Irina. While Victor smiled, introduced himself, hi, my name is Victor Gonzalez. Kate was just smiled and replied, hello to you too, my name is Kate Denali. Victor was mesmerized by Kate's beauty as he couldn't talk much as he bluntly asked, "So do you guys are sightseeing? So can we join you guys as we have also not seen anything yet?" I gave him look that said, "Really?" While Kate smirked knowing it was Victor's method of getting time to spend more time with them. It was good seeing them all together having a nice time. I could only smile at that all of them had real rough life while Victor and Jackson are orphans. They worked their ass off to reach where they are now. Jackson may be goofy but he is a very talented singer and dancer while Victor even though was silent was a martial artist and a painter. Rosalie who was next to me whispered, "It seems Kate and Irina were really having a good time." We soon took them sightseeing well both Irina and Kate enjoyed Jackson and Victor's company as they exchanged mobile numbers with Jackson and Victor. I can only say fate is a bitch in the Twilight world. What I mean, fate has already planned a soulmate for particular person. Humans are mostly forgiven for not finding theirs since they have no way of knowing if the person is your soulmate or not, while shapeshifters and vampires have the ability to find out who their mate is, which means ignoring it has huge consequences. 16 comments 0 vote. Chapter 21. Author's note. This quickly written rough draft. If this sucks I can only say I am sorry. Matt Pov. I didn't have to do anything to help both Victor and Jackson as both got along with Kate and Irina so well. I could easily bet my money on the fact they will be boyfriend and girlfriend within 2 months' time. From the roots or visions I have seen both of them being orphans, so they didn't have any emotional attachments. Being orphans, we were the only family both of them had. After all, we were like brothers in all but blood, so they will be able to accept it without any problems. I was playing a game on my phone while Rosalie asked, "So how do you think both of them will react to being a vampire?" I sighed and replied, "I don't think we will have any problems with them. I am sure they will be okay with being a vampire." Rosalie looked worried as she asked, "Are you sure they will agree?" Both Kate and Irina seem to be really happy with them. It would break them if they are rejected for being a vampire. I understood her fear as I replied, "Don't worry, both of them will accept them without a problem. You just have to trust me." Things went just like I saw in the vision. In a month's time both of them asked Kate and Irina to be their girlfriend. Rosalie gave a small nod while questioned, "What about Leah and Tyler?" I was thinking as I replied, "Well, that's a different case." Well, Tyler is different. He is an illegitimate child of Michael Anderson, owner of Anderson Inc. His mother was the only one who cared about him, died a while back. His father is great asshole who didn't even look at or cared about him. His stepmother and half-brother, or even worse, being illegitimate child. His half-brother made sure to make him an outcast in the school until we three came along. He was a lone wolf. Rosalie grabbed my hand to calm me down as she asked, "So what do you think he will do when he finds out Leah is a shifter?" I rubbed my temples and replied, "He will need some time to process everything, but he will come around." Well, things went smoothly after a couple of dates. It didn't take much time to become boyfriend and girlfriend, but we were going to tell them about the whole vampire and shifters at the end of the year, but things got out of hand as the missing cases in Seattle grew, which caused Leah, Irina and Kate to get worried about their respective boyfriend as all of them decided to tell them about the whole vampire and shifter thing. We called Victor, Jackson and Tyler to a clearing next to the Quilite Reserve as Tyler, looking around, questioned, did you guys want to discuss about way out here?" I looked at them and said, "What we are going to tell you is very important. So please bear with me, okay?" Three of them just gave a nod while I gestured Leah to go ahead and shift as Leah let out breath and transformed into a gray wolf. Seeing sudden transformation, Jackson fell down on the ground while Victor was surprised and hard time believing what just happened, while Tyler, who was stunned seeing this as Jackson looked at Victor, said, "Am I the only one who saw the chick transform into huge gray wolf?" Victor bluntly replied, "No." Jackson, who nodded and said, "Good, because I thought I was going crazy." Tyler broke out of his stunned state, whispered, "I knew there was something different about your body temp was really high, like you had a fever and you seemed to be stronger, but never guessed you were a werewolf." Tyler, who went towards Leah and held his hand over her forehead while he was still having a hard time coming in terms with all this as Victor looked at me and asked, "So what about all of you?" I shrugged and replied, "Vampires." Hearing this, Jackson immediately yelled, "We have been friends for years, bro, don't drink my blood." I laughed along with Rosalie and replied, "No, you idiot, we don't drink human blood." Jackson now stopped yelling, looked at me curiously while still on guard and asked, "Really, you don't drink human blood?" Rosalie shook her head and replied, "No, we used to drink animal blood, but now Matt had created blood pills which has made sure we don't have to live of human or animal blood." Victor, who heard all this, now looked at Kate and questioned, "So what did you want to discuss about?" Rosalie then explained to them about vampires having mates and Victor being Kate's mate while Jackson is Irina's mate, while Leah, who went towards a bush and transformed back, told Tyler about shapeshifter and imprinting. Tyler was thoughtful as he soon came towards Leah and kissed her forehead while saying, "Just give me a day to figure things out." Tyler mostly is figuring out what to do. On one hand he slightly craved for acceptance of his father while on the other hand he had Leah his girlfriend who accepted everything about him. Leah with sad smile gave a nod while Tyler walked away while Jackson and Victor came towards Kate and Irina and questioned, "So we are your mates?" Hearing the question both Irina and Kate slowly gave nod. They were afraid both of them will reject them because of them being a vampire. Both of them had waited for over 1000 years to find their mate, so they are really feared being rejected. Irina and Kate were broken out of their thoughts as Jackson said, "Well, this was not what I expected when you told me about telling us something important." Jackson and Victor just had thought Kate and Irina wanted to break up with them or something. But they never thought this. Both of them had no family, so they didn't have anyone they would see die of old age, and being a vampire to be with girls was not really bad. As Jackson came, gave Irina a kiss and said, "You are afraid I would reject you because of being a vampire, then you are so wrong." This made Irina cry while Victor smiled and said, "You are not getting rid of me." This caused Kate run up to him and hug him as he winced, "Too strong." Well, the next day I was mentally told by Sam that Tyler accepted Leah. I smiled and thought, I am happy for both of them. I have no idea if this is any good. Row 594 Creators, Thoughts. 13 comments 0 vote. Chapter 22. Author's note. This is a rough draft, please do enjoy. Matt Pav. Well, everything between Leah and Tyler was good. Also Kate and Irina were thinking about staying here with Cullens as both liked Forks and wanted to live here as they wanted the Denali Coven to move here to Forks. I was invited to Bonfire at Quileute Reserve to hear the story about Taha Aki. It seems Leah had invited to the Tyler while normally vampires are not invited. They made an exception for both Rosalie and me. While I parked my car at the end of the Quileute Reserve, I saw a shirtless Jacob leaning against his red Volkswagen. Seemed as if he was waiting. I could only guess it must have been Bella since he invited her. The poor guy was not taking the hints. Also I told Billy about this. He told if I could ask Bella to talk some sense into his son. I got out to see Sam and Embry smiled and came towards me while Sam gave hug and said, "I thought you would not come." I shook my head and replied, "You invited me to Bonfire personally, could I not come?" We were both talking. Edward came with Bella. Both of them emerged out of the car. I noticed Edward and Jacob were having a stare down. Soon Edward, who looked at Jacob with slight irritation, questioned, "Doesn't he own a shirt?" I snickered hearing that as I looked at Sam and asked, "Is Jacob really showing off his body in front of Bella?" Sam scoffed and replied, "After you told us we look like strippers, I started using nanotech clothes you created, which is much better than just pants. Almost all the pack wear a shirt when we are in public except for Jacob, who seems to remove his shirt when he hears Bella is coming." I had given Sam the nanotech clothes, which are still in the testing phase, and Sam had become the third one to own one besides me and Rosalie. Unlike mine or Rosalie's nanotech clothes, Sam's was different because of how fast he shifts into a wolf and back. The nanotech needed to be as fast, which is why it is still in the testing phase. We soon reached Billy's house. A group is gathered around the fire, eating hot dogs, laughing. Billy sits at the natural head of the circle. Old Quill's ancient grandfather sits on one side of him. Sue Clearwater, who had become a member of the council after Harry Clearwater's death, sat on the other side. The whole pack was there: Paul, Quill, Embry, Jared, and Sam, with Emily at his side. Leah was smiling next to Tyler, who was enjoying time with his girlfriend. Jacob was leading Bella toward the bonfire as Bella, who was feeling uncomfortable, questioned, "Jacob, are you sure this is okay? I really hate being a party crasher." Jacob smiled, replied, "Technically, you're a council meeting crasher. See. The council leaders, Dad, Quill's grandpa, and Sue Clearwater. She took over for Harry when he died." Quote. Jacob tried to be funny, but this only made Bella more conscious, replied, "Okay, I should definitely not be here." Jacob smiled and assured her, "You're okay. I mean your brother and his girlfriend, they thought it would be good for you to hear the histories." Bella curiously asked, "The histories? The tribe's histories? Aren't they secret?" Jacob replied, "We all got a role to play. And you're a part of this. I mean, it's the first time Seth, Leah, and Quill are hearing them, too. But you are the first outsider. Ever. I was with Rosalie. Leah and Tyler." As I turned to Leah and questioned, "Did he forget we are also outsiders and Rosalie is the first vampire?" Leah groaned and said, "Just ignore him, he is being an idiot." Rosalie smiled and kissed me on the cheek while whispering, "Yeah, just forget about him." Bella was tried to make excuses to go back home since Jacob made her feel uneasy, and Billy told her to stay and he had something to tell after the meeting, saying he had to tell her something. Seth interrupted by a gangly limbed boy who was 15 who was like a puppy. As he said, "Hey. It's about time, you got here. Paul's been hoovering the grub. But, I saved you some burgers." Leah smiled and introduced him. "Bella, this is Seth Clearwater, he is my brother. The newest member of the pack." Seth smirked and said, "Newest, bestest, brightest." Leah cut it, and the slowest. She smacked Seth on the back of his and said, "Don't get big head like Jacob." Seth laughed at that while Tyler and Seth were laughing and discussing football. Also, Seth seems to really like Tyler. A whistle comes from the circle. It's Sam. Seth jumps up and said, "Come on, your dad is about to start." We soon were sitting around the bonfire as Seth dragged us to the bonfire. As we sat down with Rosalie held my hand and set head on my shoulder as Billy started his story. The Quileutes have been a small tribe from the beginning. But we've always had magic in our blood. We were great spirit warriors. Shapeshifters, that transform into the powerful wolf. This enabled us to scare off our enemies and protect our tribe. But one day our warriors came across a being. I was getting visual images from Bella's imagination. Two Quileute warriors emerged from the trees, horrified to find a male vampire wearing the clothing of a mid-1700s Spaniard bent over two lifeless tribe girls. His eyes are blood red, feral. A terrifying image if you think about it. Billy continued, "It looked like a man, but it was hard like stone, and cold as ice. Our warriors' sharp teeth finally tore it apart. But the only fire would completely destroy it. They lived in fear, the cold man was not alone. And they were right. I was impressed by Bella's imagination. A beautiful vampiress in a tattered 1700s Spanish gown, moves through the Quileute village of longhouses and teepees. A trail of bodies, tribespeople screaming. Billy, who was looking at fires, said, she took her vengeance out on the village. Our elder chief, Taha Aki, was the only spirit warrior left to save the tribe after his son was killed. The third wife was no magical being, no special powers, but one. Courage. The third wife's sacrifice distracted the cold woman, long enough for Taha Aki to destroy her. She saved the tribe. Over time, our enemies have disappeared. But one remains. The cold ones, but some of them have now become our allies. Billy looked at Rosalie and me while saying the last part, while Rosalie, who heard the story, whispered, "Now I understand why they hated us so much. They had come in contact with our kind before they met Carlisle." Billy then turned serious as she said, "Our magic awakens when cold ones who drink blood are near us. And we sense it now, we feel the threat in our blood. Something terrible is coming. And we must all be ready. All of us." 8 comments 0 vote. Chapter 23. Author's note. I am having a hard time writing new chapters as I got a small job and it is taking up all my free time, so the updates will be slow, but I won't drop this. Matt Pav. While Rosalie and I visited our favorite spot in the forest, it was covered with flowers. Rosalie was confused and was looking around as she questioned, "Matt, why come here now?" As I pulled out a black box, seeing this, Rosalie looked at me with surprise as I opened the black box showing an aquamarine and diamond milgrain halo ring. Told her, I wanted to do this for some time now. I kneeled in front of Rosalie and asked, "Will you marry me, Rosalie Hale Cullen?" Rosalie smiled, gave a nod as I placed the ring on her finger. She was so happy that she kept looking at the ring as if it was the most precious thing in the world for her. Well, Rosalie showed the ring to Esme, Alice, and Sarah. All congratulated her on getting engaged, while Jasper and Carlisle smiled at me. It was a joyous occasion. It soon turned into a very serious one. That night everyone was watching the news about the murders and disappearances. Reporter. Police are baffled by the escalating murders and disappearances. Reporter. Theories range from a vicious new gang to a wildly active serial killer. Reporting live, Don Chubai. CNN. Carlisle said seriously, "It's getting worse. We're going to have to do something." Jasper added his thoughts. "It takes more than one of our kind to cause the damage they're reporting. Quite a few more. They're undisciplined, conspicuous." Edward. Newborns. Bella questioned, "What, like new vampires?" Edward answered her, "In their first few months after the change." Jasper, who was deep though, said, "That's when we're at our most uncontrollable, vicious, insane with thirst. Only one who overcame it quickly was your brother." I gave a nod and said, "Yes, even for me it was slightly difficult." Emmett grinned and said, "Something to look forward to." Jasper seriously said, "No one has trained these newborns, but this isn't random." Carlisle gave a nod and said, "Someone's creating an army." While hearing this, Jasper nods and Emmett was enthusiastic and said, "Oh, now we definitely going to Seattle." Bella, who is still having a hard time believing all this, questioned, an army of vampires. Jasper answered her, yes, and they've been created to fight someone. Edward figured it out as he sighed, we're the only clan even close to Seattle. Carlisle was hopeful and said, regardless of who or they were may, if we don't put a stop to them, the Volturi will. I'm surprised they've let it go on this long. Edward shook his head and said, maybe they're behind it. In Italy, I read Arrow's mind. He wants me and Alice to join him. Our gifts would shore up his power. An army could solve that for him. Bella takes this in, then asked, we can't wait 2 weeks for graduation, you need to change me now. I smacked her on the back of the head with a magazine and said, you will be turned but do not rush it. Bella looked down in embarrassment. Jasper, who heard Bella, shook his head and said, you'd be a liability as a newborn. Unable to control your instincts. An easy target. Carlisle puts an empathetic hand on Bella's shoulder, said, there's also your father to consider. How terrible would it be for him if you suddenly disappeared? Bella can't argue with that as I whispered, Bella, you need to think straight, you can't disappear on dad like that, we are the only family he has got. Bella gave nod, understanding what I am saying, while she whispered, sorry if I sounded like bitch Matt. I waved it off. I then turned to Carlisle and gave my opinion. Carlisle, I heard from Rosalie you have other allies other than the Denali Coven. Carlisle replied, yes, there are few. I was thoughtful and questioned, is there any coven who would help us? Carlisle was thinking about it as Sarah and Emmett looked at it and said, I was both of you to go find Irish coven, the chances of them fighting for us is small. He then turned to Rosalie and me and continued, I want Rosalie to take Matt with you and find the Egyptian coven. Rosalie knew who the head of the Egyptian coven was as she scrunched her nose and replied, Amen, I don't think he would even lift a finger to help us. Carlisle sighed and said, we have to try, the know of newborns is too much for just us and wolves. Rosalie gave a nod while we discussed the issue at hand. While Rosalie and I booked a ticket to Egypt, I knew this is a good chance to free Benjamin. The poor guy is manipulated into thinking Amen views him as a son. In reality, Amen sees Benjamin as nothing more than a pawn. We soon caught our flight to Egypt. Rosalie and I decided to not waste any time as visited we Amen. I didn't talk much, but Amen at first saw us, acted as he was happy, said, welcome Rosalie, I didn't know you were coming. Is Carlisle with you? And who is this young man? I grinned and thought, he is afraid we will find out about Benjamin. Rosalie gave a forced smile. She already knew Amen was faking and she replied, I am afraid Carlisle has not come, and this is my mate Matt, and this not a friendly visit. Amen, Carlisle needs your help. Rosalie explained to Amen the situation as she heard everything. His whole attitude took 180 turns as he said, I can't help you. If there is a newborn army, Volturi will have noticed it, and I am not going to do anything with the Volturi. Rosalie internally yelling cowardly bastard as she calmly said, Amen, you should remember when you were made a pariah by the Volturi with no coven or vampires allying with you, it was Carlisle who lent you a hand. I smirked hearing all this as I could hear thoughts of both Benjamin and his mate Tia were not happy with Amen's decision. Both of them felt Amen was forsaking an ally who helped him at a time of need. Amen was indifferent as he replied, no, my decision is final. Rosalie huffed and turned to me as we both were about to leave. Benjamin water from their small house pool rise up like a wall to block the doorway. We both looked to see Benjamin smiling, holding his hand out as he said, I'd like to hear about it. I never get to meet any of Amen's friends. He likes to keep me hidden. I smirked and replied, I can't imagine why. Benjamin makes the waterfall back into the pool, and he walks up to us and they shake hands. Benjamin wanted to help, but Amen denied him and wanted him to remain in Egypt. This led to them arguing as Benjamin told us to stay till evening so that he could convince Amen. Rosalie and I agreed with it, but I wanted Benjamin to see how Amen really saw him. Tia wanted to show Rosalie tourist sites in Cairo. I decided to opt out while Benjamin followed them. I watched. Amen was in the living room. I made sure to telepathically contact Rosalie and make an excuse to come back to the house. When Rosalie, Tia, and Benjamin entered the house, I made sure to make them invisible with mental invisibility, which I gained from Afton, which could only make me invisible but not others, but when enhanced it was able to make anyone invisible as long as I want. The moment they entered the living room I questioned, Amen, I must say you really did well in manipulating Benjamin. Amen, who heard this, was nervous as he questioned, what are you talking about? I smirked and replied, don't act like you don't know anything. When Dimitri was taken away by the Volturi, you wanted to make sure that Benjamin won't leave you, so you acted as a kind father figure to him. Also, don't think of lying to me. I am mind reader like Edward, but my powers are stronger. I saw all your memories. I know you view Benjamin as pawn or weapon. Amen was angry as he gritted his teeth and replied, So what if I manipulated him? I turned him into a vampire. He belongs to me. I looked at him with slight disgust as he continued. The day Benjamin went and brought that brat Tia, she was always suspicious of me. But she knew the Voeltry can't have Benjamin, so she didn't say much, but still she kept his guard, and that brat Benjamin thinks I care for him. Benjamin, who was hearing all, teared up. His hands were trembling as Tia held quickly consoled him as I looked at his so-called father figure as I removed the invisibility. Seeing this, Amin figured out he was tricked and no amount of explaining would be able to make Benjamin believe Amin. Amin in rage yelled, "You want to take him from, that is why you did this." I scoffed, held both my hand out as flames danced on one hand and a small twister on the other as I replied, "I don't need him as I already have an ability like his. I just wanted him to be free from this prison created by you to be able to do whatever he wished to do." This struck a chord in Benjamin's heart. He always wanted to trace, meet with other people, etc., but he could never do any of this because Amin denied it, saying it was dangerous for him. Benjamin sped out of the house with Tia on his tail as Rosalie and I decided to follow them as we soon found them next to the Nile. As Benjamin muttered, "A part of me always knew I was just a weapon or pawn for Amin. But I denied it and made myself believe that he cares about me as a son." Tia, who was next to him, grabbed his hand and consoled him. Benjamin turned to look at me and questioned, "I want to know why you did this." I sighed and replied, "When I read his mind I could only think how much you cared about him. But he only saw you as a weapon, which is something I didn't like. So the only thing I could do for you is set you free." Benjamin gave small smile and said, "I know you came here looking for help, but I don't think I can help you since I need some time to sort my feeling out." I gave him the blood pill and said, "Take these with you. These are blood pills. They will make sure you don't need to feed on blood anymore." Benjamin looked at blood pills with amazement as Rosalie cut in, "Benjamin, I know you guys don't have a place to stay, then you can stay with the Denali coven, or if you want you can come to stay with our coven." Tia at first thought we wanted Benjamin's powers like Amin, but after she saw me having the same ability she knew Rosalie was just trying to help, as Tia gave Rosalie a smile and said, "Thank you for the offer. We may take upon it." Rosalie just gave a nod and we soon decided to leave for Forks. I saw Vision or Roots and found out that Benjamin and Tia will soon visit Forks and will become a part of the Cullens. Chapter 24. Matt Pav. We soon got a flight back to Forks with no help. Rosalie was slightly irritated, but I slowly grabbed her hand to comfort her, for which she was thankful. As we soon reached Forks and made our way the Cullens household. The moment I entered the house I saw Bella being examined by Carlisle. Edward looked on with concern as Carlisle finishes setting Bella's hand in a splint. Sarah, at the counter, peruses several newspapers, looking for an update. Carlisle, who examined Bella's hand, said, "Total misunderstanding. It's just a sprain, should heal fairly quickly." Emmett smirked and asked, trying to walk and chew gum at the same time again, "Bella. Bella. I punched a werewolf in the face. Also might have tasered his manly parts." Emmett laughed hearing the last part as he said, "Badass. You're gonna be one tough little newborn." Bella smirked and questioned, "Tough enough to take you on?" Bella mocked, teared up and said, "I am so proud of you." Bella smiled seeing I was back as punched me with her unharmed hand as she whispered, "It is good to see you are back, Matt." Rosalie explained to Carlisle, who was disappointed in Amin. Edward questioned Jasper, who just entered the, "Okay, any leads?" Jasper replied, "No sign of the intruder. But Victoria continues to make appearances." Carlisle seriously replied, "She's toying with us. Keeping us distracted." Emmett asked, "From Seattle?" Carlisle nodded and replied, "Yes, the newborn army there." Edward questioned, "Alice can keep tracking her decisions, but we have to track her on the ground." I spoke, "Well, that won't work. Remember, Alice can't see anything related to her," meaning she had found a blind spot in her visions. Everyone knew it was true as they nodded. With graduation coming up, it was a great time for us father and son to embarrass Bella completely. On the stage, Bella walked to the school principal and shakes his hand while receiving her diploma. Out in the audience, Charlie was clapping loudly, beaming with pride at both her daughter and son. After the whole thing, Alice had arranged a party for Bella. It's wall-to-wall with teenagers dancing, celebrating. Alice has transformed the place into a magical nightclub. I shook my head and thought, well, she did one hell of a good job. I saw Mike and Eric start a robot battle, the girls laughing at that. Their celebratory mood is in striking contrast to the atmosphere in the kitchen where the Cullens were talking about the newborns. I saw Rosalie was wearing a sexy club black lace-up halterneck micro mini dress. I was slightly dazed when I saw her dancing. Rosalie was swaying her hips seductively to the beat of the song. going from slow to a sensual dance in accordance with the beat of the song. Every now and then she would look at me while running her fingers through her hair as if she was lost in her dance. To say I was dazed or dumbfounded would be an understatement. She didn't seem to care about other guys eyeing her as Rosalie learned to ignore them as she looked at me and gestured with her finger to come. I shrugged as and joined her on the dance floor. I moved, placed my hands over her hips. Our bodies brushed each other as they started grinding. Rosalie had a smirk on her face as she moved her ass and started to grind against my heart, in which was torture. My hands started roaming around her torso, which only brought a grin on Rosalie's face. We both concentrated on each other as my hands came to stop around her waist, fingers lacing over her back. While Rosalie's hands wound around my neck, pulling me down and kissing my neck. Well, when the song ended, both of us kissed each other with a full passion as Rosalie whispered, "I want you now." Lemon scene. I did as I was told as Rosalie dragged me out of the dance floor straight to our room, and before we know it we were rearing each other's clothes as I kissed her and started wrapping my arms around her. She pressed her mouth against mine. I grabbed her ass, pulling her against me as I returned to kissing her. I attacked Rosalie, pressing her against the wall while kissing her passionately as our tongues battled each other for dominance. I lifted her up as Rosalie's legs circled around my waist and sped straight to the bed, where I started kissing her neck, then trailed down to her breast as I started fondling them and sucking her nipples while occasionally giving a few bites, which made her moan. I decided it was enough foreplay as I trusted my rod into her. It started out slow but slowly gained speed with each thrust while Rosalie was moaning, "Yes, faster, faster." I couldn't help but kiss her as after 2 hours of intense lovemaking we both cuddled under the sheets. Lemon scene ended. We soon got up and went back to see Jacob coming, calm and confident as if he didn't do anything wrong. Sam was in the front with Quill and Embry flanking him. I saw Bella maneuvering off the dance floor and into Jacob's path. Bella in anger questioned, "What are you doing here?" Jacob smiled and answered, "You invited me, remember?" Bella in irritation asked, "Was my right hook and taser too subtle for you?" "That was me uninviting you." Sma cut in and said, "I am sorry about how Jacob behaved. On behalf of the pack and Billy we have come to here to apologize." Sam gave Jacob a glare as Jacob said, "Look, Bella. I'm sorry, about, the kiss in your hand. I'd blame it on the whole inner animal thing. But it was really just, me. Being an ass. I'm really sorry." I grinned and said, "Is your male reproductive organs working? I customized that taser so that they have enough power to take down a cold one." Embry and Quick snickered while Sam was having a hard time keeping stoic expression. Jacob was embarrassed as he ignored it and spoke, "I brought you something. A graduation present. I made it myself." He takes her hand and gave Bella a charm bracelet. It was an intricately hand-carved figurine of a miniature wolf. Bella just nodded and pocked it while saying, "Thanks." Jacob didn't notice Bella's irritated expression as he was pleased. Bella accepted his gift. But then everyone's eye is caught by Alice standing by the staircase, frozen. She was having a vision. Everyone was alarmed by it. Sam shared a suspicious look with Embry and Quill as both knew about the newborns and they were getting for the fight. Rosalie, Bella, and I reached Alice, who just came out of her vision. Her face alarmed. Bella questioned, "Alice, what did you see?" I looked at Alice and asked, "They are coming, aren't they?" Alice nodded as Jacob appeared and questioned, "Okay, something is going on. Tell me." Alice shook her head, said, "I need to talk to Jasper." Jacob puts an arm against the wall, blocking her, and said, "Why don't you talk to me?" Suddenly Jasper is there. His expression told it all. He was angry as he spoke. "I suggest you remove your arm." "Before I do." Sam, who next to Jacob, said, "Yes, Jacob, control yourself. This is not our territory." Jacob did so, slowly, carefully. While Alice explained, "The decision's been made." Bella was confused as she questioned, "What's going on? You're not going to Seattle." The plan was to attack the newborns in Seattle, but now it changed as Alice answered, "No. They're coming here."